Hello, and welcome to Math 2160 Business Calculus. Now this video will show you where to find everything and what are some of the common questions that students ask. So when you're in the course, and for one reason the banner is missing, but you should see a banner usually here as well. There is the course announcements and there is a calendar which has the due dates of upcoming assignments. Now everything will be in the content area. So when you go to the content, you'll see, well, at first, when you go into here, you won't see these weekly modules when you very first go into the course. They'll become unlocked when you've completed the course overview survey. So the first thing to do is to go into the course overview section. And in here, you'll see the syllabus, some Sinclair policies, welcome from your instructor, the exam information, which is very important to read for the exams, and our classroom community, and the course overview survey, which you do have to complete with a score of 100% to be able to unlock all the remaining content. Now, one thing, you have an unlimited number of times, so you may not do it on the first time, but you will get it done. So first thing, looking at the syllabus, you'll see in the course materials is just some of the basic information about the course. There's also the link for the eCampus, is where you could purchase your textbook. Now, one thing, you can't just purchase the electronic access and not need a physical copy of the book. It's up to you. The access to their Hawks online software includes an electronic version of the textbook. Okay, then the next thing is your faculty information. Well, for your own faculty, they'll have their own information there. Now, the next page is very important, which is the when assignments are due. So in this course, you'll see that things are due on Wednesdays and Sundays. Now, usually it's one assignment set due on Wednesday, one assignment set due on Sunday. There are also exams. There are a few weeks where you may have multiple assignments due, like in the third week. You have 2 assignment sets due on the Wednesday and 2 assignments due on the Sunday. And there's a couple other weeks that way as well. And then, like I said, there's the due dates for all of the exams. Now, for the grading information, for this course, the grades are based on 3 things. The Hawks Learning Homework Assignments, which are the online homework assignments, and the worksheets, which you'll submit into the drop boxes, which I'll show you soon, and also the 5 exams, which are worth 16% of the grade each. Now, the grading scale is your basic 90, 80, 70, 60% grading scales for A, B, C's, and D's. Now, for the next thing is the time commitment. This is an online course, but this is also an online business calculus 5 credit hour course, so it does take a good amount of time. So you should expect to log into the course. They say at least 3 days per week. And then the common thought is that for every single credit hour, there's 2 to 3 times number of hours spent on the class outside. So that's saying like 10 to 15 hours. Okay, and then for communications, your instructors will communicate with you, and then through email. And so you should make sure to either regularly check your Sinclair email or to have your Sinclair email forwarded to whatever email you do check regularly. And your instructor should respond to you typically within 24 to 48 hours on Monday through Fridays, excluding weekends and holidays. Now, for the late assignment policy, for the Hawks homework assignments, the policy is this, that if it's 1 day late, you could get up to 90% credit. So there's a 10% credit or 10% penalty. 2 days, there's a 20%. 3 days, 30%. And more than 3 days, then you could get up to 50% of the possible credit. Now, for the worksheets, there are no late worksheets accepted, with no exceptions, but the lowest 2 worksheets will be dropped at the end of the semester. Now, for the exams, there are due dates for the exams, and there's a window. You don't have to do it on the due date, but they will be open for at least 4 days before the due date. Now, for late submissions for the exams, those are subject to the discretion of the instructor. And one thing, there are no retakes for the exams. And now, obviously, for use of generative AI, the main thing is for the tests, you cannot use anything because the only things you're allowed during the test is a scientific calculator, blank paper to write your work on, and something to write with, and that's it. So, but for the homework, what we always recommend is you should always be trying to do it yourself first. And then you can use those things if you need additional help. But again, always try yourself first. Don't go automatically to using such things. Now for the tests, we do use an online practice system called Respondus Lockdown Browser and monitoring. So the monitor does use your webcam and microphone for when you're taking the exams. And now you must also show your student ID when you're taking the exam. There'll be a point where they'll say to take a picture of your student ID, which will be you show it up to your webcam and then you click a button and it'll take a picture of it. And then you also would do a complete scan of your surroundings before the beginning of the exams. Now, if you cannot do this or you prefer not to do this, then the only other option for you is you could take the test at the Sinclair Testing Center. And there's a link to the testing center where you could see their days and hours of operation. And then there's some other policies and also the student accommodation policy, religious accommodation policy. So that's the basic information in your syllabus. And then there'll be some more policies for Sinclair. There's a welcome from the instructor where you'll have just some information about your instructor. Now on this exam information page, first thing is you'll need, for each exam, you'll need to download the required lockdown browser, which is called the Respondus Monitor. And on the days of the exams, you should have on your workspace your picture ID, because you'll need to show it, scientific calculator, graphing calculators are not allowed, something to write with like a pen or pencil, and blank paper to write on, and that's it. That's all you're allowed to have on your workspace. Well, a bottle of water or something too if you need. And before you take your exam, make sure to do things like use the restroom so you don't have to leave the room while you're taking the test. Make sure that anyone else at your home and office know to not disturb you during the exam, so nobody else is to be in the room while you're taking the exam. Make sure your room is well lit so that you'll be clearly visible during the exam. And it's also recommend, just for a technical thing, that you might want to restart your computer and or modem router before you take the exam, just to make sure there's no glitches. So like I said, you got to show your picture ID, which could be your driver's license or your school ID, or also passport if you have one. The main thing is that your picture and name are clearly visible, so make sure you show it up close enough to your webcam. Then you got to do the environment check, which you do a quick 360 around, and also a scan of your workspace, so we see that you only have those allowed materials only. And when you're doing this check, make sure to show that you put your cell phone out of reach during the exam. You should silent it as well. So, and then during the exam, obviously, all you're allowed again is something to write with, your blank piece of paper, and you'll be taking the exam, and it's also on HAWK, so it'll be very similar to when you're doing your homework, except it'll be timed. You only have none of the help features available that you have during your homework, and that, like I said, there's a fixed number of questions for it. Now, one thing, make sure that you write your work neatly on your piece of paper and should be neatly organized, like numbered, clearly written, because any partial credit is based on the work that you show and submit. Because the HAWK system will only give you right or wrong, so it's either all or nothing. But your instructor will go through your work to see if you get any partial credit. And for calculus classes, it's very important because just like a sign mistake will make it so the HAWK system will give you no credit. But again, if you submit your work, then your instructor may give you partial credit based on the work you submit. And make sure, again, it's numbered and neatly organized, or neatly written too. And then after the exam, after you completed the exam, you'll need to submit your work in the Dropbox. You should use an app like Genius Scan or Cam Scanner, which will save your work as a single PDF file. And you also need something like that for when you submit your worksheets as well for your assignment sets. Don't submit JPEGs or HEIC, which is like the iPhone picture files. Make sure it's as a PDF. And do this as quickly as possible after completing the exam. Oh, one thing I should note, after you finish the exam, the system will first ask you to show your work to your webcam. Now you'll need to do that and submit your work. The showing your work to the webcam is just to verify that what you submit is what you did right after or during your exam. But it's not always clearly visible to read everything. That's why you still submit your work in the Dropboxes. And now if you have any questions about this, make sure to contact your instructor as soon as possible. Now going back, after you've read all this information, you'll do the course overview survey. And like I said, after you score 100% on that, then all of the weekly modules will become available. Now let's go into a couple of them. Now for the first week, you see that we have on Wednesdays is 10.1, which is one-sided limits, and on Sundays is the 10.2 on limits. Now for each assignment set, it usually has this introduction and objectives, then the learning activities page. This is where we have all of the lecture videos for the course. So this is where they're not very long. We try to keep it break them up into short little videos for you. And so you just click on the videos and you start watching them. You'll recognize my voice on these videos. And then once you've completed those, then the next link, this 10.1 one-sided limits, this is the link to get to the Hawks Learning assignment. Now, this is where you first register for the Hawks system as well. You click on this first link and it'll begin the registration process. Now, what you'll need to enter is the access code that you get from the bookstore when you purchase it from eCampus. And one thing, there is a digital Dropbox in, not Dropbox, a digital bookshelf in eCampus where once you purchase things like access codes, it'll be in your digital bookshelf. It won't be mailed to you. That's where it's located. So you'll begin the registration process. You'll, like I said, enter your access code, and then you'll go into the Hawk system. Now, showing the Hawk system. Now this will be a little different. Let's see. Oh wait, okay. Because I'm doing this as a demo student. But you'll click on that, and then let's see. Well, you shouldn't have to do all this other stuff. But what it'll do is it'll take you to the Hawk system where you'll have three things. It'll be learn, practice, certify. Now the learn is where it has some additional learning material for you. The practice is where I have some practice problems, which will be just like the certify ones, except it'll have the help features available to you. Now in the certify one, that's what you do to get your actual credit for the course. Now for one thing, when you do that, none of the help features will be available to you, and you'll have a limited number of times to enter a question incorrectly. If you enter, I think, answer so many questions incorrectly, it'll kick you back to the practice. That's why many of the students do the practice first, make sure they know how to do the problems, and if they don't, use the help features. And then once they're comfortable with the material, then they do the certify. Because some just skip straight to the certify, but then they find, okay, they get kicked back to the practice, they got to do the practice anyway, and then they got to do the certify. So it takes them actually more time to do it that way. So that's just a recommended way we say to do those. Well, there's also this discussion forum, but this is only in the first one. This is where you'll introduce yourself to the course or to the class. And then here is the worksheet assignments that you'll click on this, the 10.1 worksheet to open it up. It'll be a PDF file. You could print it off and do your work on it. But if you also don't have a printer or have any issues with that, sometimes you could just also write on a blank piece of paper your work and your answers. Just again, make sure it's numbered and neatly organized. If the instructor has to try to figure out what they're going to do, they may not do that. They may just say, hey, 0 or something like that. So make sure, again, you show your work. There are some questions where there is no work shown, but for all the other ones, there's work to be shown because that's how you could get partial credit. And then once you're done with it, again, using something like Genius Scanner, Cam Scanner, you would take a picture of the work, save it as a PDF file, and then you would upload it into this assignment Dropbox. Okay, so that's a basic week. And then for, let's see, the first exam, which is on, actually wait, before I do that. In the second week, and the very last thing you see, let's see, or was it in the first week? Okay, for some reason it's hidden. Let's see. Okay, it will be in the second week. There will be this practice quiz. And we'll put it back down here below the 10.4 worksheet assignments. It'll be a link for you to click on. And the main thing is, it'll be for no credit, except it'll allow you to download the lockdown browser before the actual day of the test. Because I've had some students who have some technical issue and they waited till the due date to do the exam, and then they couldn't do the exam because of those technical issues. That's why, again, to do the practice test, download the lockdown browser, make sure everything's working beforehand. Now for the actual day of the test, let's say for this exam 1, you click on this link to take the exam. Again, it'll first start up the lockdown browser and monitoring system. It'll have you take a picture of your student ID, then of yourself, just so we could verify that they're the same person. And then you do your environment scan. And then once you've done that, then you'll begin your exam. And like I said, when you're taking the exam, it'll be just like the homework because it is on the same software system. But there will be none of those help features, obviously, and it'll be timed. Like you'll have 90 minutes for the test. So what you'll do is you'll do the test, again, writing your work and numbering it, because again, your instructor will not want to have to go searching for the questions. And once you finish the exam, you'll show your work to your webcam, submit your test, and then you'll take a picture of your work and submit your work as a single PDF file in the exam Dropbox. And that's how you'll do the exams. So that's the basics of the course. Your instructor may send you more information later on, but that should help you all get started, and we wish you the best of luck.